I'm Gabriel Gould, and welcome to a special bonus episode of Burning the Thrushes. Like many of you, especially any listeners with an arts degree, I wear many hats, one of which is professor at a liberal arts college. In my first year class called Deep Listening, my students are in the process of creating their own 5-minute podcasts based on soundscape recordings. I thought it only fair that I should make one too, so here it is. I'm lucky enough to live in a pretty quiet neighborhood with a lot of tall trees and a creek running through my backyard. In reality, it's a drainage ditch, but who's counting? This means I have access to a lot of lovely natural sounds throughout the year. In the spring, that means frogs. So today's episode is devoted in part to them. It's one of my favorite seasonal soundscapes, in part because it doesn't last all year, only in the wet spring months when the frogs are busy doing whatever it is that frogs do. I'm sitting on my back porch in Huntington, Pennsylvania, on a damp spring night, trying to be as quiet as possible so that I can hear the frogs. Two kinds of frogs, to be precise. There's a constant light peeping, and a second more musical sound that comes and goes. These two frog species are, to me, the sound of spring in central Pennsylvania. The peeping ones are called spring peepers, appropriately enough, scientific name Pseudacris crucifer, after the cross-like markings on their backs. Peepers are also sometimes referred to as chorus frogs, which I love. Imagine them wearing little choir robes as they gather in the trees to sing. The other frogs, whose call is more periodic, are gray tree frogs, aka Hyla versicolor. Some might think of their song as eerie, but I find it beautiful, relaxing, and peaceful. To me, the sounds of these two frogs are especially mysterious, because the frogs are, for all intents and purposes, invisible. You never see them, you just hear them. Although, once I discovered two tree frogs hiding between a nested set of plastic chairs, and scooped them up to move them out of harm's way. They repaid my generosity by peeing in my hand. Nice. It fascinates me that both of these frogs wait until dark to start singing. Since it's springtime, one assumes that reproduction might be involved in this nightly ritual. I guess it's a serenade, a love song that I'm hearing. Okay, so love might be a bit of an anthropomorphic stretch, but that's how I choose to think of it. I almost said that's how I choose to see it, which just goes to show how sight-focused humans are as a species. I happen to think that the world would be a better place if more of us spent some quiet time on our back porches listening to frogs. Don't you? One of the things that makes this soundscape unique is the combination of biophonic sounds, represented by the frogs, along with geophonic sounds, mainly dripping water, and the occasional anthrophonic intrusion. You can hear the distinct sounds of two human-made machines, a distant train, which for those familiar with the area is a characteristic sound of Huntington, crossed by Norfolk Southern freight tracks. Waiting for a train to pass is a rite of passage around here. Later on, there's a car starting up, and throughout, there's the occasional white noise of cars passing on wet roads. Notice how different a car sounds depending on the relative wetness of the road surface? It's almost pleasant on a rainy night. To me, this combination of nature and human artifice is a perfect reflection of small town life, part rural, part urban, part suburban, all happening at the same time. There are downsides to living in a small town, the feeling that there are no secrets and that everyone knows everyone. But there's also the opportunity to hear things that in a more populated area would be covered by noise pollution, like the frogs. So spend 30 seconds with me now, just doing that, listening to the frogs and the occasional car. This is Burning the Thrushes, a podcast about what we hear when we listen. Really listen. Don't forget to join me next time, when the meaning of this podcast title will be revealed. Until then, happy listening.